Good morning. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. Now, I was going to do a video the last few days. I was contemplating doing a video first on a post Roe v. Wade United States and kind of a what now kind of video. And then I had a thought upon what was going on the last few weeks of Texas and Arizona sending migrants on bus to D.C. and New York City as this political stunt, and contemplating if that is actually human trafficking, which they are literally trafficking humans across state lines, as if they gave a shit about these people anyway. So yeah, I was going to do one that bad, but then this little tic-tac tidbit of a news bit just sort of propped up on Monday, and really, this is like page 3 stuff, maybe at the most. So, the little pesky FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago, which everybody is talking about. And when I mean everybody, if you go on Twitter, it is blowing up with Republicans and pundits and talking heads bleating over the threat of democracy it means. Time in, and so we are going to discuss it. And sort of spending time pontificating on the ramifications of all this, how serious it is of this raid, the necessity of it, if there was any necessity at all, and to judge if this was if this was one of those things where it was a necessity to do in terms of the legality of it, or if this is just a political hit or whatever. So I'm going to read the details of this coming from NPR. Mystery at Mar-a-Lago. What were the FBI agents looking for, and what are the consequences? Monday's FBI raid on the home of former President Donald Trump, including his safe, according to Trump, has raised eyebrows, and questions about the search could indicate about a possible criminal investigation into former president and those around him. The raid concerned presidential records that Trump removed from the White House when he left office in January 2021, according to Christina Bobb, an attorney representing Trump. The FBI search warrant authorized agents to seize presidential records of any possible classified materials, Bobb said in a Tuesday interview on Dinesh D'Souza's podcast. The search took about 10 hours, she added. The execution of the search warrants represents a significant escalation in the investigations that the Department of Justice has been quietly working on for months. What were the records the FBI was looking for? We don't know yet what exactly the FBI recovered in the raid, but the search is likely related to the 15 boxes of presidential documents that were removed from Mar-a-Lago earlier this year by the National Archives and Records Administration. I think it's supposed to be removed to Mar-a-Lago, not from Mar-a-Lago, because that would be pointless as to why they're raiding. So I don't know if NPR has a good editor on that point. Some of the materials recovered that was classified, Attorney General Merrick Garland confirmed in February. Records reportedly included correspondence between Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, along with a letter addressed to Trump written by outgoing President Barack Obama. At the time, the NARA said that the representatives of Trump were continuing to search for additional presidential records that belong to the National Archives. The Justice Department is saying, as I read this, "We're fed up, we don't trust you to be responsive. You're playing games with us, and we're going in and we're taking what you haven't returned that you promised to return," said Stephen Gillers, a law professor at New York University. What would the FBI have needed to get a warrant? In short, a search warrant indicates that federal authorities have evidence of ongoing criminal activity at the location where they intend to carry out the search. Warrants are often used in situations where authorities believe a subpoena won't be effective. It is not itself a criminal charge. Generally speaking, federal agents seeking a warrant must provide an affidavit that contains details about exactly what the material they're expecting to seize during the search and why they believe it is in a location subject to the warrant. A judge reviewed the affidavit and signs off on the warrant if they believe the details provided by the agents pass legal muster for a probable cause. We know this is just not a bunch of FBI agents who just woke up one day and decided to go on a frolic, said Stephen Vladek, a law professor at the University of Texas. The more specific the affidavit that accompanies a warrant application is, the better, Vladek said. I would suspect that for this particular search of former President Trump's home, the affidavit was probably pretty darn specific. Importantly, the warrant itself often contains much less information than the affidavit needed to obtain it. The affidavit is typically not made public. A warrant may not say what the specific crimes is, or which person is suspected of committing it. Who would have to have signed off on this search? On paper, the standards of federal search warrants are the same for former presidents as they are for ordinary citizens. But practically speaking, such a politically sensitive search would have to have been approved at the very highest levels of the federal justice system, experts agree. Besides a federal judge who approved the warrant, the raid likely needed to sign off by the director of the FBI himself, Christopher Wray, who was appointed in 2017 by President Trump. Additionally, because of the sensitivity, it's likely the Attorney General Garland was involved. A spokesman for Garland and the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, declined comment. Garland is a very cautious man, and we can be sure that he wanted to be sure that everything was done beyond criticism, Giller said. The White House said it was not involved in the raid. The President and the White House learned about the FBI search from public reports. We learned just like the American public did yesterday. We did not have an advance notice of these activities, said spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre at the briefing Tuesday. What possible crimes could have been under investigation? The DOJ has not commented about the raid or investigation. Experts pointed to at least two possible issues that could be under criminal investigation. One would be the federal statute that concerns the handling of classified materials, like some of the records involving the Mar-a-Lago records from Mar-a-Lago earlier this year. It's a very serious issue when information like this is mishandled, former federal prosecutor Brandon Van Grack told NPR in February, pointing to the federal law that is prohibiting the unauthorized removal and retention of classified documents. On its face, if these were top secret documents, they were not declassified, then they were mishandled. The second issue is the Presidential Records Act, a 1978 law that requires presidents to preserve all historical relevant materials from their time in office. Everything from phone logs and national security briefs to emails and handwritten notes, and then hand them over to the National Archive and Record Administration once they leave office. Most presidents understand the value of crafting and preserving their legacy, so they show more care, even if with a keen editorial eye, preserving their records appropriately. Lauren Harper, Director of Public Policy and Open Government Affairs at the National Security Archive, a nonprofit that advocates for the public access to government materials, said in an email. I'm stumbling, it's morning for me. There has quite simply never been another president so unconcerned with how to handle their records, making the removal of subsequent search unnecessary before now, she said. Are there any special legal protections for former presidents? In short, no. While there are significant legal questions about whether a sitting president can be charged with a crime, the same cannot be said of former presidents. He's really like a regular citizen, except for the massive political implications, and those cannot be understated here, said Kimberly Wee, a former federal prosecutor who now teaches law at the University of Baltimore School of Law. And Trump is not simply a former president. He is considering another run for the office in 2024, making him a possible election opponent for Biden should he run again. The optics of a sitting president's administration charging an opponent cannot be ignored, the expert says. During the 2020 campaign, Biden himself acknowledged the political consequences of such an indictment. I think it is a very, very unusual thing, and probably not very, how can I say it, good for democracy to be talking about prosecuting a former president, he said in August 2020. The White House repeated Tuesday that it is not involved in the criminal investigation carried out by the DOJ. The Justice Department conducts investigation independently and will leave any law enforcement matters to them, Jean-Pierre said. Is this unprecedented? Essentially, yes. The residence of the former president has never been subject to a federal search warrant. The raid is a very big deal historically, we had said. On the other hand, she said, there is no precedence for ferrying documents out of the White House this way. A president that previously faced criminal investigations, after President Richard Nixon resigned amid to the Watergate scandal, he faced a possibility of federal indictment and trial. Instead, President Gerald Ford pardoned him, effectively ending the investigation. What could this mean for Trump's prospects of running for president again? It's hard to say. Legally speaking, the Constitution does not prevent a run by a candidate who has been indicted or convicted of most crimes. That could include mishandling classified information or violating the Presidential Records Act. One possible penalty for willfully and unlawfully handling the public records can be found in Section 2071 of the U.S. Criminal Code, which calls for anyone found to have done so to be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. But there are questions about whether that clause could pass legal muster when it comes to running for president. The Constitution is specific about qualifications to be president and offers impeachment as a remedy to bar people from serving as president. Some legal experts have argued that the Congress does not have the authority to change those qualifications. The question has not been tested in court. The Constitution does bar people who engage in insurrection or rebellion from seeking federal office, but there is not currently any indication that that's what's at stake with Monday's FBI search. Politically speaking, the raid comes as the January 6 hearings have already caused some damage to the former president's reputation. Some Republicans have expressed unease about the possible Trump 2024 run, and polls show that many Republican voters were already open to an alternative candidate. On the other hand, Trump is still the biggest name in Republican politics. His endorsement was sought by primary candidates across the country, and in some places appears to be made a difference. After Monday's raid, many Republicans are rallying around Trump. Several have demanded that Wray and Garland face questioning by Congress, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy pledged to investigate the DOJ's actions should the Republicans retake the House in November. Okay. So, we have all that. So, what I've been noticing is the obvious fallout from this. As I said, if you go onto Twitter, Twitter was already blowing up, I guess, because of the midterms looming, with a lot of Republicans throwing out red meat and just saturating it with their political talking points before this raid even happened. Now this raid happened, and yeah, this is now amplified. We had a discussion on this. Vin from Vin and Sori's Middle America did a live stream, and he approached this as well. And while he recognizes that a president is not a king and is not above the law, you still have to take into account of, the importance or seriousness of the raid. And if if it was something that was actually needed to be done in terms of justice, or if it was a political stunt, and there should be consequences if it's a political stunt. Scusa, which I tend to agree, because that is, if it was one of these leftist political ploys that is being banting about on Twitter, that this is something Biden was doing, this is a political hit job, and it gets worse in how they describe this shit, then yeah, it is disappointing. When I was watching Vin take this on, it kind of gets discouraging for anyone who's a really watcher of politics, because unless you really, really are one of these polarized, one side over the other side, and you're just gonna just ignore any stimulus from the other side, and you're just gonna just be our side, rah rah rah, and don't even say anything negative about that. It just gets discouraging at the idea that the reality could be both sides are full of shit. And doing something like this, like if it was an intentional political component in this raid on Mar-a-Lago, then what I've been talking about the last few videos about the degeneration of our politics is true. That we're not going to get any better. It's going to be where one side takes over, and they promise to investigate the other side. Then they hold their committee meetings and their speculations and all this stuff, where they invest so much time in investigating for no other reason than revenge, because their side got investigated, or at least their golden sacred cow got investigated, so we gotta investigate the other side. We're gonna investigate Biden, we're gonna investigate Hunter Biden, we're gonna investigate Garland and Ray and this and that, and we'll show them, we'll investigate. Well, first, come up with the crimes to investigate. We know that Hunter Biden is under DOJ investigation. And when people like this throw out the terms, we're going to investigate, as if it's a threat, again, my response to that is, do it. Unlike you, who are so fearful of investigations because it might hurt your side politically, as opposed to actually worrying about what they're being investigated about. Just do it. I'm not concerned about it. If you have any inkling of actually dealing with anything in terms of justice, and it's accused that somebody did wrong, investigate it, find out if it's true or not. If it's true, deal the consequences which are required. And if it's not, exonerate. But one of the things that we keep noticing when it comes to Trump, how he keeps sliding away from any form of responsibility or consequence, and flat out does everything in his power to not even get in front of a judge, in front of a jury. Appeal, sidestep. Oh, I have immunity for this, I have immunity for that. Only today I posted a article to Middle America about him making his intentions that he was going to plead the Fifth before the New York Attorney General in the cases that are going on concerning him up there. If only regular citizens could have the same opportunities to appeal and evade, even going to court, then the United States jail system would be barren. There would be so many empty cells. because it would take years before any of these people would ever get inside of a courtroom to actually have a trial. But I digress. Now, it is interesting when you read up the criminal code that they were referring to. And I'm going to attempt to read it to you as I go and hunt for it, since it keeps popping in and out for me to reference. Pardon me as I had to go and hunt for things. Here we go. Alright. 18 U.S. Code 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. This is the removing of the documentations. The code notes: A. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys, or attempts to do so, with any attempt to do so, takes and carries away any recording, proceedings, map, book, paper, document, or other things filed or deposited with any clerk or office of any court of the United States, or in any public office, or with any judicial or public office of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned no more than 3 years, or both. B. Whoever has custody of such records, proceedings, map, book, documents, papers, or other things, willfully or unlawfully concealed, removes, mutilated, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys the same, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned no more than 3 years, or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States, as used in this subsection in terms offices. Does not include the office held by any person as a retired officer or of an armed forces of the United States. Alright. The arguments I've been hearing about this, like what they were searching for, like the 15 boxes of documentation, one of the arguments against this was against the raid was, oh, but that wasn't classified. Trump declassified it. Well, according to this criminal code statute, it doesn't matter if the documentation is classified or not. It's the matter of them being removed. We know it was removed because that came up in February. And all this time, the Trump people were searching for this stuff to give back to the National Archive. You take the politics out for a second. Just for a second. You take the politics out. You leave the office as, say, President of the United States. You leave the office with documented material that the National Archive wants to keep and preserve for the legacy of your presidency. You take the stuff. They ask for it back. Your people hey and haw on, we're going to try to search for it. We haven't found it. We haven't searched, but we're searching. Time goes by. And then the Justice Department gets involved. You still haven't returned the stuff. They still want it. It is still required for them to have it, and yet you do not give that to them. Under the guise of, we don't know where it is. They come to take the stuff. That is it. We had heard a few days earlier that Donald Trump was under a Department of Justice investigation concerning what he was doing or not doing on the times of the January 6th Capitol riot. We don't necessarily know if this raid has anything to do with it. I think we're about 75% sure, vaguely, that this was more about the documentation that was taken. but there could have been overlap. Possible. They raided Mar-a-Lago for 10 hours searching for stuff that we do not know what they found or if they didn't find. Trump says they broke into their safe. You know, it's part of his, we raided, They also said that Trump was cooperating. So, why would the FBI be breaking into a safe if he was cooperating? Because if he was cooperating, he'd open the safe for them. And another point that came out that I found it was interesting is that if Trump or any of these people really want to question the validity of the raid and say that it was unlawful or that it was looking for stuff that wasn't part of the search warrant, show the search warrant. You have it. You have it on your side. You can show specifically what the FBI agents were looking for. But then, this is Trump we're talking about here. He's not going to show specifics. He's not going to do any of this. He's going to turn this into, even though he cooperated, it's going to turn this into a whole melodramatic thing here and get the people to eat it up in order to get him support and so forth, which is going to work. This does bring up a few interesting questions on the political side of this. As I've been seeing on Twitter, all the sycophants are out in force saying that this is the worst travesty to ever happen in the history of the United States and probably all of humanity. The way that some of these people speak about Trump, you may as well make the analogy that this raid on Mar-a-Lago was essentially that these people were Roman soldiers. They handed Trump a cross, pointed to a hill, and said, "Start walking." It is pathetic level of being a sycophant some of these people were going for. And there was this I think Stefanik said this, Elise Stefanik said something to the effect of, well, if the FBI could raid a presidential residence, what could they do to you? That's a great line. It is. But here's the deal. FBI has been investigating, surveilling, and raiding regular people's houses, regular people's homes, since its inception. The only thing that is different, and that she is not mentioning in all this, is that former President Donald Trump was treated not like the God King, as they expect people to treat him as. That's why they're crying tears of blood over this. He was treated like a regular citizen of the United States under investigation. That was duly exercised a search warrant for them to raid his home. And let's be kind of clear about this. This is not out of the blue. There wasn't Democratic operatives or FBI operatives out for revenge. Donald Trump did this to himself through his own negligence and recklessness of the bullshit of him just doing whatever the fuck he wants. Because when you think about it, and Vin pointed this out, and he's right about this. If this was a political hit job, this is the stupidest political hit job ever. This does nothing to cast, doubt or turn people away from Donald Trump. Not his hardcore fan base, not the sycophants who prop him up, who want to use him as a meal ticket. It's not going to do anything positive for the Democratic Party. I don't think it's going to affect positively on the midterms. In fact, I dare say the Republicans run with this will be a booster rocket under their ass in securing their midterm wins. So if it was a overtly political act with no basis of any legality, of it just being a political hit job, a political persecution, or anything else, it's a bad call. It's totally a bad call. But I don't think it was. And it's not to the matter that I find Donald Trump to be an unqualified, disqualified piece of shit. Despite my bias against him, I also recognize that you have to have reasons to go after someone in this manner. And there was a reason. He had 15 boxes of documents, or we thought it was 15. It turns out they found 10 more. That's interesting. And that kind of that gives me a little nugget of suspicion on that, because if they kept mentioning 15 boxes and there was 10 more boxes, how did the National Archive not know about these boxes? Now, the running line that I've been hearing is that, oh, the FBI was planting. They were planting evidence. Evidence of what? We're not even suggesting much of a crime here. I mean, the federal statute, the mishandling documents, yeah, that actually has jail time involved in that, and fines and so forth. But is that what they would be planting evidence of? That they found, like, Trump's personal doodles of, like, some woman's breasts, like, on a wrapper from a quarter-pounder cheeseburger wrapper from McDonald's or something? I mean, and again, for that accusation, that would require Trump or someone in Trump's orbit who would have seen the search warrant to produce the search warrant, so they can show what they were supposed to be finding or what they were supposed to be looking for. And if there's anything that they found that is outside of that scope, then that is something to argue and debate about. But no one's showing that. Not yet, as the time of this recording. Maybe they will in the future. Maybe when they figure that out, that's actually a benefit to Trump to actually show the search warrant. Oh, and the appeals court, on a minor side note, says that the House can get Trump's tax records, that he can't be ducking that no more. Which, of course, he'll probably duck again. It's funny how these very wealthy people can appeal their way to never sit inside a courtroom and just never face any responsibilities. Well, normal people faces responsibilities and consequences just crossing the street and doing absolutely nothing wrong. That's a tangent of another day. But again, if this was a political ploy, if this was an active directive in terms of politics, if Biden was involved or any of this bullshit, then it's a bad call. It's a horrible call. For this time frame, it is tone deaf to what is going on in terms of our politics and what people are going, and especially conspiracy theory time, where anyone, sailing the seas of tinfoil will see this as political overreach. Conspiracy. They're coming to get you. I swear. My God. Some of the things that they were talking about on Twitter, the talking heads and gerbils. I think on Fox News, somebody was saying, this is as bad as the KGB and the Nazis, this raid? Oh, really? It's as bad as all that? How many people died during this raid? How many people were assaulted during this raid? Because they were so close to equate this to January 6th, that this is the insurrection, yeah, this is the coup. Fuck you. They raided his house on a search warrant. A search warrant that didn't come out of the blue, that actually went through the legal process to have a search warrant. It is not illegal. It is not unlawful. It is actually quite lawful and quite legal because they actually went through the hoops to do so. So annoyed at this moment, I made the camera shake. But again, we're in midterm season, so we're going to have as much political hair on fire bullshit as humanly possible on any subject concerning the current political party in power or the president in power. As you can see, the only thing that Republicans are promising that they're going to do is investigate. And that's it. This is another part of that whole degeneration of politics I was referring to in the last few videos, is how one side or the other side, doesn't matter Democrats, doesn't matter Republicans, instead of telling you what they want to do for you, when you grace them with your vote and give them the ability to be in the majority power party in the Congress, being House and Senate, instead of telling you what they want to do to help you, or listening to you or what you want them to do for you because they're supposed to be representing you, they're going, oh, once we get in power, it's going to be revenge time. We're going to be investigating. We're going to investigate Joe Biden. We're going to investigate Hunter Biden and the criminal Biden family. We're going to investigate Merrick Garland. We're going to investigate Ray. We'll investigate the Easter Bunny because, that bunny, that little bitch, hiding those chocolate eggs, we're going to get him too. That is what they're going to go for. That is what they're going to do for you. Oh, and they're going to try to make marriage equality a state-by-state thing. So if any loving gay couples out there that are legally married in one state, they'll make damn sure that if they cross the state in another state, that will not even be recognized and be considered invalid. But that's a whole other thing that we can get to. Plus everything else, including, the aftermath of Roe v. Wade and what certain states are doing, which is another video of another time. Here's the thing. It's kind of like we're going to land this here. If this led to actually something really criminal, if we find out through this FBI raid that there was something very damning, very criminal that Trump was doing, especially if it has anything to do with January 6th, if he discovers something like that, right? And he does get arrested. Should that happen, in this time where the Trump fan base is so loyal and so rapid, so eager to fight, to beat people up, to even kill, from the lone wolves that just takes what he says on a rally trail and consider that their manifesto to go and do mass shootings, those individuals, not talking about the whole Trump base here, but I'm talking about those fucked up individuals that just got in their heads, to those who were ramped up until the point of January 6th, heard the directives, real or imagined, that Trump and his allies were telling them to do, then they took a walk to the Capitol and tried to stop the certification in his name by breaking into the Capitol and hunting people. Imagine what people would be doing if Trump was arrested or faced trial. So much rhetoric on fire people would be going for. It could be very dangerous to politicians, to media, news media, pundits, anyone who's critical of Trump, should that fear keep Trump to never face any types of consequence or the chance of consequence for anything he does? Is that fear worth turning the blind eye? See, I don't know if that is. I don't know if that's worth it. To let something that could be potentially criminal go for the sake of political expediency or fear. Because the flip side of the coin is that you do nothing. That just adds credence to allowing people to be emboldened by your inaction. And so anyone like Trump that comes after Trump can see all this and say, hey, I can do that shit too. Obviously, nothing happened to Trump. And also, you lay down justice. You lay down the sword of justice, the shield. There's no point. You give a blank check to anybody who has some political influence, some power, and you let them go for fear. Justice shouldn't fear politics. Justice should make the arrest if there needs to be an arrest. Justice would let chips fall where they may. Right or wrong, here or gone. People will try to point their fingers and remind you of Hillary Clinton and her acid washing of her materials. Well, yeah. But does her bad behavior and her activity, is that excuse Trump in his? See, that's the argument. Because if that is the case, then all this is politics. You just don't want your guy to go. You don't want your guy to even face trial. If there is a trial required. You don't even want the possibility because of politics, because of your side. You all talk about Hunter Biden as if this is going to be an equatable thing. Like, oh yeah, we'll investigate Hunter Biden. Fucking investigate him. Do it. You're all fearful for any investigation for Trump. And that could either be, you were really that blindly loyal to Trump, or maybe because you're so overt support that if somebody you support is a criminal bullshit artist, that will reflect upon you. So you don't want that reflection. You don't want that, self-reflection of realizing who you've been siding with, who you've been standing next to, that you fight like hell to make sure that never happens, that you never get in front of that mirror. I have no fear of that in terms of people on my side. If people on my side did something wrong that was criminal, then investigate it. If you have evidence and proof of it, investigate it. If you don't have evidential proof and you're just doing it just because it's a fucking revenge thing because, it happens to poor Trump, yeah, do that too. Waste the country's time. Because you evidently have no other plans. The Republicans are more than likely going to take over the House and Senate. In the midterms, they're going to win it. And if their only plans is that they're going to investigate because it's revenge time, they're doing nothing for you. Your lives are not going to get any better from this. So, if this is all entertainment for you, fine. Enjoy it. Enjoy the show. Making them Democrats and them libs squirm. Ooh. But is that going to help you, get up in the morning, get in your car, go to work, pay for gas, pay for food, pay for medication? all the stuff that you're blaming Biden on, they're not going to magically disappear because they're having investigations. And one more thing to keep in mind as I'm trying to land a plane here. In election season, especially, one side is not going to help the other side. If there was a plan that one side comes out to try to help the American people, the other side is going to say, oh, it's horrible, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, it's going to cause inflation, there is no benefit, because they do not want there to be a benefit. They do not want them to succeed. And even if that success means it makes your life better, they don't want that to happen. They want life, as long as they're around power, they want life to be so goddamn awful. They want the country burning. They will even take the gasoline can and tip it to make it burn louder. And then point the fingers at those in power and say, they're the ones who did it, even though it's their fingers that smell like gas. In my view about this whole matter, I say let justice be done. Let chips fall where they may. If they find anything worth this investigation, then see to it. Take it to its ends. If they find nothing, then at the very least, the powers that be that conducted this raid, that got the search warrant, that made a grand jury agree to a search warrant for this investigation, explain that too. Let us see the search warrant. Let's see what they were looking for. And give us the reasoning why. Because unfortunately, as much as we want to believe that everybody are regular American citizens, that we have an equality in our justice system, there isn't in terms of Trump. Because there's so much backlash that could come from this, so you better cross your T's and dot your I's and lowercase j's on when you make moves like this. And if you do not have everything, you have your ducks in a row, as well as we expect when you're raiding the house of a former president, you have to explain why. Because if you don't, at least in terms of politics, you have fucked things up. And things can get a whole lot worse if this whole thing was a waste. There were people worse than Trump out there. It's hard to believe, but there is. You think DeSantis is any better than Trump? In the optics, he is. He's not flaming. He's not reckless, irresponsible with his words, his actions, just trying to entertain, but not really doing anything in the job. That makes him worse, because he is Trump with a purpose. He is Trump with the capability and the knowledge of governance. Something that Trump doesn't like, he tweets. DeSantis makes policy, pushes action in laws, and that is far more damaging to the American people, to certain segments of the American people, than Trump being mean on Twitter. Will DeSantis have a wild fan base that is like Trump's, that will take any word or inflection or see the color of his tie and think that's a code to go out and commit mass murder? Probably not. But he won't have to. They won't have to. If we were going to have issues in terms of like trans folk, Trump will tweet and demonize them and get people to all laugh at his jokes or, and share their own bigotry towards him. DeSantis will just sign an order. Or he'll push for a policy that just shreds the transgender a few rights that other people would have. Let's do the same for gay folk, do the same thing for abortion. DeSantis doesn't say. DeSantis does. And why this is brought up in the final ending of this? Because if Trump doesn't run again in 2024, DeSantis will. DeSantis is more proactive to actually doing things than Trump was. People live so far beyond reality when they say Trump was the greatest president that ever existed, when Trump didn't do shit as president. He talked. That's it. He talked. He did not do anything. And those things that actually are done, you can equate them to people putting that thought in his head. He didn't do anything on his own. DeSantis will use the influence of his office to push his political goals that will hurt people. People he doesn't give a shit about, people his fan base or his supporters won't give a shit about, people in the final analysis in politics, even if they don't say it, they don't give a shit about. And all this potential future from 2024 to the 2022 midterms could all stem from a misbegotten, potentially stupid political stunt of a raid on Donald Trump's house. If that was the case, that was done because of politics and not because of some legality. I will tend to believe that there is justice needing to be done here, and I think there is the case that he just did not give the documents back and they were forced to raid to get them back. And if they found something that was criminal, then again, more power to it and let justice be done. But consequences are coming. And we gotta be ready for it. The better this raid looks, perception-wise, because again, perception is reality, the more facts that are on the side of this will be better off in the long run. But if there is none, then just be prepared. At the midterms, at 2024, maybe even beyond, a Republican control. And maybe sometime down the line, hopefully, while I'm still in my 40s, maybe not, but there will be enough overreach on the right side that the American people will finally grow tired of it, and the ebb and flow of politics will swing the other way. I hope. Alright, I think I ranted enough about this for now. But the ranter rants because the urge to rant is always rising, and you all give me so much material to do so. You're backlogging me with ranter videos that I have yet to make in our body politic. The last thing I'm going to mention is that after watching the live stream that Vin did, and just seeing all these stuff coming down, is that I got kind of depressed on this, because in reality, what does any of this even matter? In this polarizing politics of one side versus the other side, where there is no compromise, our way or the highway, we're all in or you're all out, regardless, bullshit. that is killing the country. We don't need to get everything we possibly want all at once. The other side doesn't need to get everything else that they possibly want all at once. We make the compromise to make progress move forward. But since no one wants to make the compromise, that there is no middle anymore, to work towards compromise, to work towards the progress, we're stagnating. We're the Roman Empire in its decadence. We're the Roman columns that holding the buildings up starting to get the cracks. And at some point, what we were from 1789 to 2024, that America, that representative republic of our democracy, if Trump does come back and Trump does win, that will cease to exist, because that will just all be a joke. And everything comes afterwards will simply be a joke. And if this raid is as petty as they're claiming it is, perhaps the joke has already been made. See you around, guys.